There is no more room for error. It is win or go home time, and we are at the business end of this tournament. Guys, it's the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup round of 16, and we're here to give you our predictions for each of those 8 matchups. Guys, Matty G back here with you on Football with Flags. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and let's get right into this. Well, I'd be wrong if we didn't at least show how we ended up based off our predictions before the tournament started. As you can see, we got 10 out of 16 right. A bit disappointed to not get a few more correct. However, again, all of these groups were just so tight and difficult to decide down to the wire. So there you have it. Let's get right into these predictions. Straight away into this first contest, we've got Switzerland versus Spain. And I'd just like to point out that the winner of this game, it will be the first time that either of them have made it to the quarterfinal. Both of these teams are still fairly new to this portion of the tournament. Switzerland only ever making it to the round of 16 for the first time back in 2015. That was, again, when the format had 24 teams in it, so you had some third-place teams advancing. They did finish third in their group at the time before losing out to Canada 1-0 in the round of 16. So I definitely feel like that this has got to be the best group stage result that they've ever had, finishing top of the group with just 5 points. However, still getting a point away from Norway and New Zealand, the co-host, is very impressive. Of course, they did only score 2 goals in the group stage, but I think their defensive shape, the way they worked together, the way they took care of their chances, but really didn't hurt themselves or make too many of their own mistakes, is a big reason why this team has gotten to this point. As for Spain, they had plenty of goals. They scored 8 in their first 2 games against Costa Rica and Zambia before getting smacked by Japan in that last one. They did finish second in the group with 6 points. Still, Gonzalez and Bomani, along with some others, were very, very important. However, they did still outpossess Japan 78 to 22% in that game. Spain is going to want to keep the ball. They're going to want to really try and suffocate Switzerland and play with their own tempo. We'll see how well they can convert their chances. I definitely do think they'll have more chances than Switzerland in this game. We'll see if Switzerland can be smart in terms of 50-50s. Can they counterattack well? And again, keep a good defensive block when they might go long spells without the ball and be out of possession. But for me right now, guys, I do have Spain winning this contest. I think it's going to be a very tight matchup between these 2 European sides. But I do feel like Spain could come out on top in this one and advance to their first ever quarterfinal. Next matchup in the round of 16, we've got Netherlands taking on South Africa, and we'll start with the Dutch. A 1-0 win versus Portugal, then a 1-1 draw against the U.S., following that up with a 7-0 thrashing over Vietnam. That's what really took them to the top of the group. Not only getting the win, of course, but then making sure they had the edge in goal differential as well, with +8 after those 3 games. Netherlands really looked good in the group stage. I really thought they had a good shot at potentially taking all 3 points away from the U.S. as well. Of course, Lindsey Horan coming up big with that header to tie the game. But again, Netherlands with that 3-5-2 looked very comfortable in the midfield. They overloaded a lot of portions of the midfield as well. Leaky Martins did very well in terms of checking into space, coming back, supporting, and getting more numbers forward as well into the attack, considering though she was still technically playing up top. I thought Jill Ward was a huge piece as well, along with a number of different players. But Netherlands just looked super comfortable at a lot of different times during this group stage, and definitely deserved to be top of the group coming out into this knockout stage. And I definitely feel like they had one of the best performances overall out of any team in the competition through the group stage as we head into this round of 16. As for South Africa, so many different milestones they hit. Unfortunately, losing to Sweden 2-1. However, they did score first in that game and had a lead, which is phenomenal against a very good European side. They get their first ever point against Argentina. However, they did lose a 2-0 lead in that game, which is a bit unfortunate, but still a great run for them. And then to cap it off with a 3-2 win coming from behind against Italy to get not only their first ever World Cup victory, but then to advance to their first ever knockout stage is just phenomenal for these ladies. They did play a 4-4-2 in their first couple of games, but then transitioned into a 4-2-3-1 against Italy. I do feel like they might stick with that formation against the Netherlands, especially just considering it's a few more numbers possibly in the midfield. It's a pretty good defensive shape as well if they get numbers behind the ball. And again, Magaya was huge for them, scoring a couple of times in this group stage. Keep an eye out for her in this contest. And again, while they did have so many different milestones that they hit in this competition so far, I was a bit worrisome considering they had that 2-0 lead against Argentina. It just seems like they ran out of gas there in the second half as Argentina was really trying to pour it on and save themselves from getting knocked out of the competition early. I do think that this is going to be a tight game. I think South Africa is going to do well to, win 50-50 balls, take advantage of counterattacks when they can, or at least get in behind that midfield five of Netherlands. But I do feel like Netherlands will control the game a good portion of it, and again have the better of chances on frame. And that's why I do have the Dutch going through. Again, I think it'll still be a very tight game. And again, credit to South Africa from getting to this point. And certainly feel bad that I didn't wind up picking them to get to the round of 16. But they've played phenomenal so far. And I think this is going to be a great showing of a debutante in the round of 16 against a team who made it to the World Cup final last time out in 2019. But for right now, I do still have the Dutch advancing to another quarterfinal. Next up, we've got Norway taking on Japan, and we did correctly predict this matchup, however, just in a different spot in terms of Norway finishing second in the group and Japan finishing on top. We actually had this reversed, but still had these two going on to the round of 16 and facing one another just in a different part of the bracket. As for Norway, a 1-0 loss, pretty disappointing to New Zealand to start things off. Again, the co-host came out flying, but still disappointing not to get anything there. A draw 0-0 against Switzerland, and then finally kind of came to life against the Philippines, scoring 6. However, again, the absence of Ada Hegerberg was certainly disappointing, especially considering we thought she was going to play against Switzerland and then got pulled out right before the beginning of that game. Hopefully she will possibly be available. Roman Hogg with the hat trick as well there against the Philippines. She came to life and is in the conversation for that Golden Boot race. I definitely feel like Caroline Hansen's going to be very important in this matchup in terms of just, her physicality, her creativity, and just what she brings to this team attacking wise. I think she's going to play a very, very key role in terms of how well Norway can attack this Japanese side. I definitely think that Norway's going to have to take advantage of their defensive shape, be patient when they're out of possession. Again, they've got a little bit more size than Japan, so I think if they can be smart with their aerial attacks in terms of swinging balls into the box, set pieces, as well as defensively making sure Japan doesn't win anything is going to be very important. And I definitely feel like Norway could possibly take advantage of corners, etc., to maybe take down the Japanese. As for Japan, though, again, 5-0 against Zambia, 2-0 against Costa Rica, and 4-0 against Spain. Really a bit shocking that they throttled the Spanish that much. But again, they come away from this group with 9 points, plus 11 in their goal differential, and they have shared the goals as well. I think they've had 6 or 7 different goal scorers already, which is only just helping this team flow with confidence even more so when you've got that many people that are getting on the score sheet throughout these 3 games. They are just playing phenomenal football so far. And again, just a statistic to share with you, I think they only had, I believe, 41 touches in the final third against Spain. But again, still wound up winning that game 4-0. I believe Spain had like 260 some in the final third of Japan. But again, Japan come out winning that game 4-0 because of just how clinical they were and unselfish they were inside the box and around the 18 in terms of taking care of their chances. Of course, Spain were a bit unfortunate with a few of those deflections and some bounces that took place. But again, don't take any credit away from Japan for how well they've played in this competition so far, not only through their possession, but the fact of how many goals they have scored, as well as the fact that they've had 3 clean sheets so far. And again, with that, I think Norway's going to put up a good fight, but it'd be hard for me to pick against Japan right now, considering just how well they've played against their 3 teams that they had in their group, especially considering coming off that 4-0 win against Spain. So for right now, I've got Japan advancing to the quarterfinals. Well, we knew this matchup was always going to be a possibility, but certainly didn't expect it to happen this soon. But the United States and Sweden have met in the round of 16. We'll start off with the Americans, who had that 3-0 win against Vietnam, then 1-1 coming back from behind against the Netherlands, and then, of course, a disappointing 0-0 draw against Portugal, finishing second with just 5 points in their group. Certainly felt like right from the get-go, only scoring 3 goals against Vietnam was a bit of a disappointing result, considering you felt like they might need more goals in terms of that goal differential battle between Netherlands down the stretch. And on top of not even getting a result from Portugal, only having scored 3 goals against Vietnam compared to the 7 that Netherlands had, already felt like they were off to the wrong foot. And they've just been disappointing so far in terms of some of the decisions made by their manager Vlad with substitutions, changes with tactically, from first half to second half, and just other decisions made. Not only that, but it just feels like at times they've been a bit arrogant in terms of whether it's preparation, against their opponent, how they overcome adversity so far, or just kind of how they've responded to certain situations, even after the game against Portugal, seeming like they were pretty upbeat, pretty happy with themselves in terms of moving on. But certainly, from a four-time champions perspective, doesn't feel like you should be all too thrilled just scraping by through the group, especially knowing that Portugal almost sent you home with a shot there off the post, and then Alyssa Nair coming out of her box and making a huge mess off of that set piece chance that Portugal had that they could have finished as well. This will be very interesting to see how they stack up against Sweden, who especially don't fear the U.S. at all. The last time these two teams played, Sweden did win 3-0. That was in the Olympics a couple years ago. And Sweden went through that group fairly comfortably, had 3 wins out of 3 games, finished, that 2-1 result against South Africa, 5-0 over Italy, and then 2-0 over Argentina. Don't forget, though, South Africa took the lead against them early in that second half and had the Swedes on the ropes for a while, and Sweden did not take or score that game winner until late in that game. But I do feel like that while they had a fairly comfortable group, they're very dangerous in terms of their interchanging runs. Their movement off the ball has been slick, it's been fluent, it's been fast. And I feel like that they've been very dangerous in the box as well on a number of different occasions, as well as the fact that they've had a number of different goal scorers, which I always feel like is very important when you get to this point in the competition, regardless who you faced in the group stage. If you've had a number of different players score and find the back of the net, that can really uplift a lot of confidence in your side. With that being said, though, guys, I really don't think the U.S. is going to have enough. Again, in our final predictions before the tournament started, I had Sweden beating the U.S. in the semifinals. I'm going to stick with that. I think this could be a low-scoring game. I would love to see it go 3-2, maybe extra time, something like that. But I do feel like Sweden could win this one, maybe 1-0, whether it's a mistake in the back, a loose ball in the box, a set piece, a corner, or something. I think Sweden might come out a little bit more aggressive than the U.S., and the U.S. have got to start off faster than they have in their first 3 games. Otherwise, I think if Sweden take an early lead, that could be trouble for the U.S., especially considering they have looked nervous and just kind of questionable in some of their decision making so far on the field when they've faced adversity. So again, right now I've got Sweden advancing to the quarterfinals, taking down the 4-time World Cup champions, who, keep in mind, have never finished outside the top 3 in a women's World Cup finals. Again, they've either won it, finished runners-up, or finished at worst third. So if they get knocked out here, of course, their worst result ever in a finals, and definitely would not be ideal. A lot to go back to the drawing board with. But again, right now I've got Sweden still beating the United States here in the round of 16. Off we go to the next matchup, this time between the Lionesses and the Super Falcons of Nigeria. We'll get started off with England, who had 2 1-0 results against Haiti and Denmark, and then really let the floodgates open against China with that 6-1 win. They're certainly flying high after that slow start. Lauren James with a couple of fantastic finishes, as well as some great assists. Rachel Daly has been important, as well as Hemp, Lucy Bronze, Georgia Stanway, and others. I really feel like that this team in that 3-5-2 or 3-4-1-2, however you want to look at it, are very strong. They can control the midfield well. They're pretty solid defensively, but certainly allowing players like Bronze to get up and involved in the attack, along with some other great attacking options as well. I definitely think that this team's in a much better position than we expected them possibly to be. Even though they had a slow start, and considering some of the injuries that they've been facing, I think this team's still in a really good spot and looking very good at the moment, with, again, 9 points through the group stage. As for Nigeria, a great start. Christine Sinclair missing that penalty really set the tone for Nigeria. They wind up getting the draw against them. They defeat the co-host 3-2 in that second game, and then get the result they need, at least from Ireland, with that 0-0 draw to secure second place in the group, 5 points. And again, while Ohale and Ashuola have been very important and involved in their attack in terms of creating great chances, as well as Kanu, this team has had a really good defensive structure. They've counterattacked very well, but again, just not allowed teams to penetrate through gaps. They've been strong in their aerial battles. They've won 50-50 challenges, and they've played physical too. And I think that's been very important for this team in terms of being able to make it to the knockout stage, which I believe is the 3rd time that they've made it to this point. Last time out, I believe they lost to Germany 3-0. And again, this is going to be a very difficult beast to go up against in terms of England, especially coming off of uh, two great tournaments, or excuse me, at least finals with winning the Euros last summer and then the Finalissima. Um, it's going to be a really tight game. I think that both of these teams have a great opportunity to exploit one another if they get the right moments to press and can force turnovers off of one another. But right now, I do feel like England still are going to maybe get the better of Nigeria. I think they're going to be very threatening in their counterattacking options and opportunities, like we talked about. But I do feel like the Lionesses might be able to smother them with a press, keeping the ball in their own half for a good portion of this game. And I think are just going to be able to capitalize on having more opportunities in this game, possibly, than Nigeria. So with that, right now, I do have the Lionesses going through to the quarterfinals. Up next, we've got Colombia taking on Jamaica, and this is going to be a phenomenal game, especially considering, of course, Jamaica have never made it to the knockout stage up until this point. Colombia have only ever done it once in 2015 and lost out to the United States. So they're back for just the second time once again, though, facing CONCACAF opposition. And Colombia got here with a 2-0 win against South Korea, a 2-1 upset over Germany, and then unfortunately a 1-0 loss to Morocco, but still saw them through to the top of the group with 6 points. Linda Caicedo has been absolutely phenomenal, the youngster for this team. They've had her playing on the left and on the right. We've seen Colombia play in a 4-2-3-1 all 3 games so far through the group stage. So certainly feel like they'll stick with that formation as we head to the knockouts. And again, they had a huge upset beating France in 2015, and then come back and have another great upset against Germany this time round. The only thing missing, of course, for Colombia is getting over that hump of the round of 16 and getting to their first ever quarterfinal. I really do like Linda Caicedo. I think, though, more on the left. I think if I were their manager, I'd have her play on that side, even though they have bounced her around a little bit. I just think she's a bit more dangerous on the left, cutting into the right side. And again, if you saw that goal that she had against Germany, please go back and watch it on the highlights, because it is unbelievable just how much talent this girl has. And I do feel like while she's very threatening on the right side, she's maybe even a bit more threatening on the left, especially being able to cut in on her right and score and take on finishes possibly like the one she had against Germany. It was just incredible. As for Jamaica, a 0-0 result against France. They wind up beating Panama, their CONCACAF rivals, 1-0 in their second game, and then hang on with a tie against Brazil to send Marta and that Brazilian side home. Jamaica have yet to concede in this competition, and they've played 2 top 10 teams based off of FIFA's rankings in the world between France and Brazil, which is unbelievable. Of course, remember they lost Bunny Shaw in that opening game to a red card, but she came back against Brazil, had a phenomenal game. And we've seen them bounce around with their formation as well, despite having a great defensive block and a great structure defensively in terms of shutting down passing lanes, not allowing crosses in, keeping things clean and clear out of their box fairly well. We've seen them play in a 4-4-2, a 4-1-4-1, and a 4-4-1-1. So it'll be interesting to see which of those 3 they come out in, or if they switch it up and do something totally different as well. And another note, if you've never heard of what Bob Marley's daughter has done with this federation and how she's helped continue to make it grow and keep it alive, I would certainly, if I were you, go back and listen or find an article or something that gives more information about that. She's really been a pivotal figure in helping this team keep funding, keep awareness, and keep women's football thriving in Jamaica to get to this point. And I'm sure she, along with all the fans and everyone that have been watching, are certainly so happy and thrilled to see their side doing as well as they are right now with a shot in the round of 16. So again, one of these 2 teams going to go to the quarterfinals for the first time ever. I'm going to go with Jamaica getting what I think maybe some would consider an upset, getting to the quarterfinals. I think they're going to continue to shut down Colombia. I think this game's going to go into extra time. We probably might see it even go to penalties. And again, I think this game's going to be back and forth. I think both teams might get tired late. I think it's really going to open up, and we're going to see a lot of good chances both ways. So again, we could see this game go maybe 2-2, something like that. See some goals, but still have it all tied up as we head into extra time and then possibly penalties. But I'm going to go with Jamaica taking down Colombia and getting to a quarterfinal in these World Cup finals. Well, our one co-host, the Matildas, have made it through. Australia will take on Denmark, and we'll get started with the Aussies right away. They had that 1-0 win in their opener against Ireland. Unfortunately, came back with a 3-2 loss to Nigeria, getting upset in that one, but then coming back with an emphatic finish 4-0 over Canada to finish top of the group with 6 points. Of course, Sam Kerr, it looked like she might come on as a sub there against Canada, but considering how well they started off in that game and continued to flourish, felt like maybe they should just continue to rest her, and hopefully she'll be ready to go for this round of 16 matchup. Rosso, Catley, and Fowler have all been phenomenal, especially against Canada in that final game to assure Australia get over the line and don't miss the knockout stage. Remember, this team did lose out in penalties in the round of 16 to Norway in 2019. And I do feel like that this is one of those potential games that could be a stalemate, maybe 0-0 or 1-1 and go into extra time or penalties. But for Australia, they've played a 4-4-2 in all 3 of their games thus far. I think they'll continue to do that. In this next game, we'll see if maybe Fowler, Catley, Rasso, one of those maybe drop back into midfield if Kerr is to start, and she'll push as one of those top 2 strikers. We'll see what adjustments they look to make to make that formation look comfortable for these ladies. As for Denmark, a 1-0 result against China to get things going. Lost 1-0 to England, although they had a great shot off the post with a header late in that game to possibly take a draw out of it, but unfortunately missed it. But then a 2-0 win against Haiti to secure second place in their group with 6 points. Vangsgaard, Harder, and Nielsen have been very pivotal in this team and how well they've done, especially against Haiti in that last game to secure getting through to the knockout stages. They've never progressed through the knockouts, keep in mind. They made it to the quarters in 91 and 95. However, back then, that was the first round of the knockout stages, and they did not get to a semifinal. So that's the farthest that they've ever been, but they've never actually won a knockout game. They've played a 4-3-3 and a 4-2-3-1 so far in their games. I think they'll come out in a 4-2-3-1, if I'm being honest, against Australia, just considering the attacking options they have. I think they'll want to maybe keep a better block defensively and maybe a little bit more solid in the midfield to hopefully control possession and just keep numbers behind the ball and secure that they've got a good shape defensively, but then can also break out with plenty of numbers and plenty of angles to attack with. So I think they might come out in a 4-2-3-1. We'll have to see about that. But I do feel like this is one of those games that's going to maybe go into extra time or penalties. Right now, I do have the Matildas getting through. I think that they'll score a late winner in extra time to secure their spot and have some more dramatic drama in these knockout stages to send Australia through to the quarterfinals. Last but not least, we've got France taking on Morocco. And for those who follow the Men's World Cup, remember this was a matchup in the semifinals back in November to see who would go on to face Argentina in the final. But we'll get things started with the French side. A 0-0 draw there against Jamaica. A bit disappointing to not come out with more from that, considering how many chances they created. They come out much faster against Brazil on the right foot. They wind up getting a winning goal from Wendy Renard in the second half off a header to get 3 points there, and then score 6 against Panama in a 6-3 finale to end the group stage. Of course, like we again talked about, they did start off slow, but they came out very fast against Brazil. A lot of energy, high intensity, a good press, looking to win the ball back and be dangerous going forward. And it was a much better side. And I think if France come out playing exactly like that, they're going to be tough to beat. But they certainly can't afford to come out as slow as they did and sluggish against Jamaica, or concede and get as sloppy as they did at the end of that game with Panama, especially considering Panama got the opening goal in that game, and then France come back and score 5 unanswered before Panama add another 2 late in that game. That cannot happen. They can't switch off like that mentally in terms of, they've got to finish these kind of games out better. As for this team, I do feel like if they're able to keep the same energy and press, they're going to be very difficult to beat. Wendy Renard has been phenomenal, again, as always, in terms of her ability in the box, winning headers, being aggressive. I think Diani as well with her hat-trick against Panama. She's going to be riding a good wave of confidence. And hopefully Leigh Sommer is going to get back into it a little bit. I don't think she started in the last game. We'll see if she starts here against Morocco or not. But again, I think she'll still be an important figure. They've played a 4-4-2 so far in every game thus far. And moving on to Morocco, while they did lose 6-0 to Germany in that opening game, they come storming back with a 1-0 win against South Korea and then a 1-0 result against Colombia to hang on and take 6 points in this group, sending Germany home. That's the lowest ranked a team has ever made it to the knockout stages. I think they're 72nd in the world rankings right now. And again, we've talked in the comments, the FIFA rankings are not ideal. They don't totally make sense, and they're a bit disappointing in terms of they don't maybe judge teams across the globe as well as they should have. So Morocco certainly I don't think should be that low, but considering that's where they're at, that is a huge, phenomenal accomplishment for them to get to this point. Especially considering in this group stage, they wind up still finishing with a -4 goal differential after getting beat down by Germany, but then come back and get 2 wins to secure their first ever spot in a round of 16, especially knowing that this was the first time they ever qualified for a World Cup. And now they're into the knockout stages. It's just unbelievable for this side, making so much history. They've bounced back and forth between a 4-4-1-1 and a 4-4-2. We did see them make a lot of changes tactically with certain players in certain positions from that first game against Germany compared to how they started against South Korea and Colombia. I would look to see them play pretty much an identical starting 11 that they came out with against South Korea and Colombia. I think that same group will come out. We'll just have to wait and see which formation they elect to use against France. I think they'll go a bit more defensive. They haven't had the ball a lot in these 3 games. They've definitely just had a good defensive shape. They've looked to win the ball on 50-50s, be aggressive, and look to attack with numbers going forward off of counters and corners and just moving the field position up when they can, but they have not possessed the ball a whole lot. So I would look to see France control this game in terms of that area and that statistic. It's really, I think, just going to come down to how well France can finish their chances. Can they use their size and height in the right areas, or will Morocco come up big in terms of great defensive structure and just take care of the few possible quality chances that they have to try and get by the French? Right now, though, unfortunately, again, while this has been a phenomenal run for Morocco, I'm still going to wind up going with France in this one. I think it's going to be a very tight game. I think we could see this one go 0-0 and go into extra time or penalties as well. But as well as the French men's team came out and started hot against Morocco back in November in that World Cup semifinal, I think the French women are going to have to try and do the same if they want to at least get a step ahead of Morocco. Because if they don't, and they continue to let Morocco build into this game confidence-wise and with a better mentality, it's going to smell trouble for them as this game continues to move forward. But still, though, right now I've got France advancing to the quarterfinal. All right, guys, so there's an updated look at the bracket. We've got Spain going up against Netherlands, Japan taking on Sweden, Australia going up against France, and then a matchup between England and Jamaica. So those are our predictions for the round of 16 to the quarterfinals. As every round progresses, we'll continue to come back and do predictions based off how these games end up. But I just want you to keep in mind, we've only ever had 4 World Cup champions from 91 to present day. That's been Germany, Norway, Japan, and the United States. Of course, Germany's already been eliminated, but as you can see on that bottom left hand of the screen with the bracket, how it's set up, those 3 other world champions are all potentially going up against each other, with Japan and Norway facing one another in the round of 16, and then possibly the winner of that going up against the United States just for a spot in the semifinal. So that means that there's no guarantee that one of those 3 at least get through to the final based off of how well that top left-hand side could do. But just keep in mind, the right-hand side, we're going to see somebody new and fresh into the World Cup final with a shot to be a first-time ever winner. So there is a very good possibility that we're going to see potentially a new World Cup champion this time round, especially knowing that out of our 4 defending champions, only one is going to have the opportunity to progress to the final, because they're all going to have to go through each other now at this point based off how the bracket sets up. So just keep that in mind to see potentially who gets through, or if none of them get through and Sweden is the one who gets to the semifinal from that portion of the bracket, then we've got all of our defending champions out and we'll for sure have a brand new World Cup winner. So that being said, just keep that in mind as things progress through this tournament. Just wanted to let you know about that. And again, yeah, I mean, it's going to be very intense and very exciting to watch this unfold. Guys, again, thank you so much. If you were able to make it through that entire video, certainly appreciate your support. Love to hear what your own predictions are down in the comments section. Let us know who you've got, who you're rooting for, who you'd like to see go all the way, any of that stuff. Please let us know. down there in the comments section. Thanks again so much for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already done so. And yeah, we got these knockout stages starting in just a couple of days. So keep those televisions on because we still got plenty of football to play to find out who's going to be our 2023 Women's World Cup champion.